you're more like in the victim mode. And that's okay. It's okay to be a victim. It's valid. You probably were victimized, right? I feel like there's a lot of shame and blame towards victims. Victims are allowed to be victims, and they're allowed to take however long they take to move out of that stage. But when you're owning your story, it's more you're getting to this point of real appreciation for everything that you went through. And so you're moving out of the victim stage more into empowerment of the gifts too that came from the crap, and getting to the point of true appreciation for everything you went through because it got you to this point. And you know that had any of that been different, you probably wouldn't be at this point right now.
Welcome, fellow entrepreneurs and goal-getters, to Entrepreneurial Elevation, Unleashing Greatness Within, with myself, your host, Kelly Beveridge, and my special guest today, Cassandra Love Lambert. And I'm just really excited to have her on. We met, 12-ish years ago, I think, through a personal development seminar, a women's retreat. And the truth is, I was so inspired by her then, and I'm inspired by her today. And we've reconnected recently. We've followed each other on social media over the years and always celebrated each other's success. And she's just got a special energy about her and a special light. And I'm excited for you to hear from her today. She is a trauma-trained somatic transformational coach and artist. She's fully trained in clinical EFT, brain spotting, and somatic attachment therapy. She's the visionary behind her brand, Sea Love, which is all about spreading love and radiating light. And she is a new author of a book called Into the Light, Becoming My Own Hero, which I'm just really looking forward to reading, Cassandra. And her message is all about turning pain into power. And so I just want to share with the listeners ahead of time that we are going to be talking about Cassandra's past. It has been tumultuous, and I'm really grateful she's having the courage to come on and talk to us today. There may be some sensitivities, and so I just want to let the listeners know that before we get started. And I just want to acknowledge Cassandra for writing this book, being open to spreading her message. And I think, I know you are going to impact so many people for the positive in helping them heal and love themselves and take their story and turn it into something powerful. And so just grateful to have you here. So welcome to the episode and to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm so excited. Yeah, we were I was trying to do the math too. I honestly think it was more like 14, 15, 16.
Yeah, I don't even know. Time warp, right? Yeah, we met and we just had this energetic connection. I honestly believe that, even though we didn't personally talk that entire time. Yeah, we've been following each other, supporting each other, celebrating each other. And you're just super inspirational. And what you've created in your life out of what we're going to talk to today is just awesome, Cassandra. And you just have such a good energy. For those of you who are watching this on YouTube, look at her background. For those listening, she's got angel wings in the background. That's just good energy. Yeah, good energy radiating from the screen. And Cassandra, first of all, question, what caused you to decide to write your memoir or a personal story about yourself? And what is the message of your book that you want the readers to get?
Yeah, so it's so funny because I've always had the desire to be a writer. And I've always known that I'm supposed to write my story, but I was really scared for lots of reasons, right? Because some people who were maybe abusive in nature are still alive. And so I didn't quite understand how I would be able to fully tell my truth with that piece. So I felt really silenced, which is so ridiculous because we help each other heal and we help each other grow by sharing our stories. Finally got to, and also I was really in it still, quite honestly, still in the middle of transformation where I wasn't owning my story fully, or I wasn't to another side where I could speak to it from transformation. What has transpired is that I'm finally at a point of owning my story where it's not controlling me anymore, and I'm at a more transformative position. When I speak or write about something, it's from a transformed place. So it's helping people through whatever that is versus being stuck in it. You know what I mean? So that was a big piece of bringing me to writing my story. And a lot of those layers of fear I had that were silencing me aren't like I worked through them. So they're not like holding me back anymore. And of course, I'm being smart. Some of the details will be changed or whatever to just protect privacy and stuff of people. However, I'm feeling more able to speak my truth and authenticity in a way that can inspire others to help them too. Because I've been through so many dark phases or stages or places in my life. So I know that I was put in those places and brought through them so that I can help other people in those same kind of places and situations. So yeah,
Yeah.
the intention for the book really is a roadmap for people in the dark. People have been through abuse, all kinds of abuse, right? Sexual abuse, relationship abuse, having narcissistic or emotionally unavailable parents, just all these kind of like themes in the book so that it could be a roadmap to help people to heal and transform it into like their purpose.
Wow, I love that. And I want to get into what some of the things are that you actually specifically did to own your story, to start to heal, and to turn it into something that's purposeful. Yet, so the listeners can understand part of your journey, why don't we go back, if you're okay with it, and chat about part of your story? And I think that what you shared is so true. When you have the courage to share your story and what's real for you, we realize how many people out there unfortunately have similar stories, and it can support other people just to hear that they're not alone. And so let's maybe go back to your childhood and just your journey of what you've been working on healing.
Yeah. So I was born to a single mom. She left my dad before I was born because he was alcoholic. And from stories she shared, like he would do ridiculous things like take her car or not pay the rent or do weird things. There was a time where she like hid her car and I guess he was trying to find it. And so she pretended like she was going to run him over, but then didn't. And that was like before she left him, but he would like not take care of his responsibilities or whatever. So she left him. And that wasn't like the only not great relationship she was in. And I even share that just because of how transgenerational trauma or how we get impacted by like our parents so much and how it shapes our world. And then, so the next person she ended up in relationship with was also an alcoholic and a not happy drunk. He would be abusive verbally to her and they would get in a lot of fights. And then I was only 2. They birthed a child together. However, CPS got involved because I got a black eye in one of these incidents where they were arguing. She moved me out of the way, and the mom called CPS, and I got taken to a foster home. When I try to go back to those memories, it's very hard. I used to have nightmares about it. And what I do remember was wherever I was put, I didn't feel safe and they weren't nice to me. They stripped me into my underwear, took away my things, wouldn't let me play. Plus, I didn't know where my mom was. Where was I? A lot of abandonment stuff got created there. She ended up getting me back, but I never saw that baby sister ever again. So just trauma there too, right? Where's my sister? And then the next person she ended up with was the molester, and they birthed another child. So that's the sister that I've had my whole life, my little sister, 5 years difference. And he didn't start off being a molester, right? We moved into a huge house in San Francisco with him, 3 stories high, and he seemed really nice. He took care of us really nice. However, like things started to change. He lost his job. We had to move into this tiny little apartment shack. Not sure if you've seen that video I've shared on my Instagram where I actually went back and visited it
No.
this past December or January. Super crazy. And it's really dark. I can't even believe this building is still up. But we moved into this tiny little condo, and my mom was the one working and he was home with me. And also this is where they started having fights. Like I witnessed him kicking her in her pregnant belly and she went flying across the floor. And when she was at work, this is when like he started to take me to the bathroom or the bedroom and do things with me. And this happened from the time I was 5 to the time I was 8 when she finally left him. She didn't know when she left him that he was doing this. She found out a little bit after because one of my best friends, he had done an incident with me and her, and she helped me actually go tell my mom finally after she had left him. And so then that process began. It was like all these things that shaped me so young. And the thing about sexual abuse too is once it happened once, it was like other people touched me too. It wasn't just him, kids at school or at the latchkey I would go to. So it was almost like I was just prepped and primed to have people touch me. And back then too, people weren't having those conversations with their kids like they do now. But yeah, once you go through something like that, you become a magnet for it, and it's really hard to break those cycles.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. That takes a lot of courage just to share even what you just did. And you were sharing earlier about owning your story, yet when you're a child going into your teen years and this is going on, what's the story you started to tell yourself about you when it came to your self-worth and what you deserve? Did that start to shape a story that didn't serve you as you were growing up? I can only imagine.
Yeah, I know that as I got older, like one of the biggest things was just feeling like something was wrong with me. Cause also the ways that sexual abuse impacted me was like I wasn't able to watch certain shows or certain scenes and shows like sex scenes and shows or whatever, or like porn, that kind of stuff. I had a huge, like it would trigger my system. And my mom actually antagonized me around this stuff, made me feel like, "You need to just get over it, blah, 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 it's life." She'd even call me in the room with it on the television, so she wasn't helpful in this area. And then also, like, in my teen years, she would come down, like, in negligee if I had a boyfriend over or talk about sex stuff in front of my boyfriend, knowing that type of stuff made me very uncomfortable. I always felt like something was wrong with me. And then, yeah, it impacted self-esteem and body image stuff, especially as I got older. One of the ways too is because when I was younger and he was doing that, he would have pornographic material out and images of women that were like naked or basically naked. And so it really got burned into my core, this body dysmorphia, like, well, I don't look like them, or what's wrong with me, or I'm just good enough to be touched, but not good enough to be loved. All these like interesting patterns and feelings and beliefs came through from that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know you chat about it being a magnet, and you and I were chatting earlier that you then continued down a path where you started to attract other abusive relationships.
Yeah.
Your choices validated that story, right? That you weren't good enough.
Yeah.
You chose to work in a gentleman's club for 10 years, not good or bad, right or wrong, yet it just did, which continued to perpetrate the story of you not being good enough and not worthy enough. And
Mhm.
so maybe just chat about that, like how those beliefs actually took you down that path before we talk about how you had the courage to change that. But it was quite a while. The choices you were making did not serve you.
Yeah. Yeah. So funny enough, it was me and a bunch of roommates, and when I was going to SF State, where we all decided we were trying to do this MLM Excel. I don't know if you ever heard of Excel. It was like similar to ACN. It was like a telecommunications. We were all attempting to do this MLM together, and it wasn't being very successful. And we were roommates, and we're like, "Oh, we got to pay rent." And so it was actually, and then this was also after getting an abortion for me. So I was just really, I didn't want to get it done, and on the way there, I called the guy I had been with and been dating for so long. And I was trying to tell him I didn't want to get it done. And he was like, "You better get it done. I don't want anything to do with you or the baby." And when I went through that, I felt like a part of me died on the table. And I just had so much anger and hatred towards men. So it was like creating this like this um pressure cooker of like when they were like, "Why don't we just go be dancers?" I'm like, "Yeah." So in my mind, even doing that came from a place of thinking it was taking my power back. I was like, can't beat men. Like they cheat, they lie, they abuse, they treat me like meat. So I might as well just take them for their money. And so in my mind at that age and that time, I thought that was me taking my power back. But really, it was just perpetuating, like, the patterns and keeping me stuck in a jail and just keeping me exposed to more of that sexualization and things that didn't help me heal, basically. And it became a
Yeah.
trap, right? Because then you create your life around this income you're making. And then it's what do I do now? How do I get out? Which it tortured me. That job tortured me because it was so not aligned with who I was. It just kept perpetuating those patterns. And I would drink. So I started turning towards alcohol. I drink a whole bottle of vodka just to be there. And then it got to the point where that doesn't work anymore. I'd be crying in the bathroom. When I would get home, I'd just throw the money. It felt like slave money, or I would sabotage to get rid of it. So it was a lot of really hard years. And the environment wasn't great, right? The women are very hard and harsh. And I actually had a lot of really deep conversations with the women. A lot of them had abusive pasts, just like me, sexual abuse, rape. A lot of them were in abusive relationships as well. They were very hardened. And so when you were like a good person, they didn't trust it and they would pick on you or tear you apart. It just wasn't like a healthy environment at all.
Oh my gosh, Cassandra. Wow, that is quite a story. And as you're sharing, I'm just thinking there's a lot of women that can probably relate to at least one thing you shared that you've been through, but to go through all of that, and I can see how you share it just continues to create patterns that aren't healthy, thoughts about ourselves that aren't healthy, stories about yourself that aren't healthy. And so what was the turning point? Because you could have continued, we could not be sitting on this episode today, right? With all the success and new life you've created for yourself, a beautiful environment you've created for yourself, new story, like you said, you're creating for yourself. So, what was the turning point? Because you could have kept going down that path, which would have been easy to do. So, how did you start to reclaim your personal power back?
It's so funny because even though like I was in this environment or whatever, I actually started going to PSI while in the middle of dancing. And what's so hilarious is I actually started enrolling dancers and the managers to go to PSI, and I did.
Awesome, though. But that's amazing, right?
Yeah, so trying to help change not just myself, but other people in the environment. And they actually did go and become graduates and go to the Principia and everything. But so it just the comedy and that. But yeah, I just really dove into the PSI seminars, did all their courses, kept volunteering. I think I staffed like 12 basics just all the time, staffing. Did PLD, coached PLD twice, did the kids basic. I just couldn't get enough of the personal development work. And also makes me circle back to that one of the teachings where this is it and I'm satisfied. And I was like, but no, because I was
Yeah.
so resistant to where I was at because I hated that job. And the more that I hated that job and wanted to get out and this and that, the more I felt stuck in it. There was a point where I had gotten out for a period of time, but ended up in another abusive, very abusive relationship. I even moved. So this brings me to one of the things I talk about too is you can't run away from your problems because wherever you go, there you are. So like changing location or getting into a new relationship isn't going to resolve the roots that created whatever that was in the first place. And then you'll end up back where you started or recreating it again. Yeah, that relationship obviously ended. I ended up back dancing again in a better environment as far as that goes. Like I've been in like really not so great clubs but there are a difference in the clubs, by the way, and the caliber of people in them. But so what because of being in this like higher end club, the relationship I had and getting out of that really abusive relationship, I had a new appreciation for it. And from that space is where things started to change a little bit. However, I got pregnant and I had been with the father on and off for 2 years. Like we really loved each other. However, I first saw that having the child, for my intuition, knew he wouldn't be there to see it through because like his family didn't like me. There was just like friction there. And when I sat with this, do I keep the child? Not. I was actually at work when I was really sitting with this. I always wanted to be a mom, always. And because I had that abortion way back earlier, I wasn't sure if I get another one. What if I can't have a kid after this? So I was really sitting with this. And when I went onto the floor at work, I was like looking around and I was just like, yeah, I can't. I knew if I was choosing the baby, I wouldn't be able to do this job anymore. And it was like this moment of like unknown. Like I had no plan, I had no anything, but like something in me just was like, this is it. And I went downstairs and I put my stuff in the locker and I walked out of that place and I never went back. And
Wow.
I chose having my daughter. And it was the hardest, greatest decision of my life because of like the turn of events, right? Baby daddy left. I had to move back to my mom's. And it was really this blank canvas of starting over from scratch. My stuff had to go into storage. I was at my mom's house and it was like in the middle of this remodel and there were concrete floors and I'm sleeping on a blow up mattress with bags of my stuff around me. I just felt like stripped raw, just like her house. I was like, this is such a metaphor for my life right now. And I felt so heartbroken, but I had this life growing in me. And so I knew I had to just keep moving forward. And from this space is where Sea Love was born because I got intuitively guided to ask someone if I could do my art in the back of their event. They said yes. And I showed up super pregnant and I hand wrote signs with and used tape and just taped it above me. 1, say hi, 2, sit down, 3, become art. People sat with me, they rubbed my belly for good luck. And that was the start of spreading love one brushstroke at a time. It was a decade of amazingness. It just kept growing and becoming more successful. I was able to help other women make supplemental income for their families, and they typically were moms like me. So we were like the moms at events, making like being a safe haven for them so they could get some. And we ended up working with Google and Uber and all these like tech companies in the city. But yeah, I don't even know. It was just like all these pieces. So yeah, with my story, right, the book, it's just so many pieces.
My mind, because you're such an inspiration that you got yourself to the other side with everything you've gone through. And I'm just sitting here thinking, like, you share your story about how you ended up going to personal development and investing in yourself, and then how you made that decision to keep your daughter and just walk away. And you make it sound like it was easy, right?
Oh, we're so hot.
And I know
Yes.
exactly, I know it wasn't easy. So what guidance would you give people who are listening who may either be in a similar scenario or they're in that scenario where they know they're being destructive. They know that they're stuck in unhealthy patterns. They know that if they keep going down that road, they're not going to be happy. How do you decide that to just let go and move forward in a different direction? What would you share about that?
Gosh. It's just the pain. I think Tony Robbins talks about this a lot too. It was like the pain of staying stuck where I was just too great that I just had to try something else and do something else that, and also just the idea of not being able to be a mom. I knew I was supposed to be a mom and I just had to say yes to, I couldn't not say yes to this path, even though it was so scary and so hard. And I had no idea where it was leading me. And going back to my mom's house was so hard because it was like reliving childhood all over again because those similar dynamics and family patterns resurfaced, which is a whole other thing too that came up that I had to work through. Like the whole journey of motherhood was hard because being a single mom is hard. And yeah, it's when the pain just gets too much, it's time to do something different. And I try to help people. I tend to work with people when they're in crisis mode a lot to help them kind of balance out and regulate their system. However, you don't always have to go to crisis. Like I want to teach people how to not have to go all the way to crisis to change or transform things. I know that's usually like the wake up call most people wait for. However, there's a way to make that more smooth where you don't necessarily have to go to extreme crisis all the time.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting as I was waiting for you to hop on the episode, I was just scrolling through Instagram and this saying popped up and I thought, no way. And I wrote it down. It's from Lewis House. He says, whatever pain hurt you in the past will continue to haunt you in the future if you
Mhm.
don't learn to heal it in the present. And
Yeah.
I thought, wow, and how relevant for what we were going to be talking about today.
Yeah.
So, what measures did you put into place once you made that decision that you were going to create a new life for you and your daughter? So that you didn't fall back to your old habits and patterns, which would have been once again easy to do. How did you start to heal and what did you put into place that was gonna support your mindset, your belief in yourself, a new way of doing things, making new decisions that served you. Talk to us about that journey now, because now you're starting to be on the other side of it.
Yeah, this was definitely in the middle of the transformation rates. I moved back to my mom's. Things were more and more becoming like they were when I was a child, which was so hard because I'm like an adult getting like emotionally abused same way. Like she'd make me like she'd say things like, "Oh, you're just gonna attract someone that did to you like that did to you to do to your daughter." And I was just like, so she scared. She instilled fear in me that I was gonna repeat the pattern. And that was actually one of the hardest things too, was when I had my daughter, it brought up all that trauma. So I'm like, "Oh crap, I'm such an asshole. I just brought a kid into a world that I've never felt safe in." And I'm like,
Mhm.
I don't know how to
Wow.
keep her safe if I don't know how to keep myself safe. So the amount of responsibility that I felt for bringing my daughter into the world. I like was literally overwhelmed with all my past trauma and the wounds and stuff. And the world was a very scary place. I didn't know who to trust with my child. And what's so interesting is, of course, you just go to what's familiar because at least you've survived that. So I leaned on my mom really hard because at least I know her, even though she's like not the most healthy, and maybe people who might have been more healthy, I was leery of them. I don't know them. I don't know that. So that's a hard place for any mom to be in. Um, but I had done a lot of woo woo healing before my daughter, right? Like I got into like energy work and Reiki and crystals and all these different forms of healing, in addition to a lot of personal development work. But none of that did anything to the roots of my trauma, because it all came surfacing up as my body changed, as I had her. And one of the paths I hadn't checked out or tried that I was actually angry at was creator. I was like, if there's a God, F him. Cause like, why would he let me as a child go through all these things? I felt forgotten. I felt not cared for, obviously. However, I was like, I've tried so many things that led me nowhere. Like even sitting with shamans and doing medicine that didn't heal these roots. So started taking steps towards creator, which was really awkward. Didn't know what I was doing, didn't know how to pray. And you take a step towards it, it starts taking steps towards you. I got into an entrepreneurial group of called Shield Maiden with Satemic Ali. We were a group of women. Most of them were wives. All of them were pretty Christian based. So like just being in that environment too. And then I ended up going to the foundation of spiritual development, which to me really helped me so much because it gave me tools that I could use to really help ground my energy, protect energy, really create that clear channel to creator. Because before that, I was so empathic and sensitive. I don't know if you've heard of highly sensitive personality, but that's like me on top of empath, on top of having complex PTSD. So like this hybrid of super sensitivity. And before I had these tools, I was very just feeling pushed around by life all the time. No ability to regulate or center myself at all. And then that led to somatic work, clinical EFT, which was the first modality that I got certified in because I really saw myself shifting and transforming. And whenever that happened, it felt weird. And whenever it happens for my clients, that's what they describe it as too, is weird. Cause like literally your world starts shifting and then there's a part of you like, is that gonna come back? And then when it doesn't come back, you're like, oh, okay, this is my new normal. Because I was experiencing that, I just felt so convicted. I'm like, oh, this is the thing I can help people with. So that was my first baby of a modality to get certified in. And then from there came brain spotting and then somatic attachment therapy, which is parts work. And yeah, and then pain into power process was born. And I've been walking people through it for 5 years now. And what I love about the work I do is I'll check back in with clients and interview them or just reconnect. And the things we worked on stayed. Like the change wasn't just like a band-aid or a temporary thing. It truly stayed and they've progressed since then. So I really love that part about the work I do, that it's not just something to make you feel good in the moment and go back home and you revert backwards. Like, it actually is transformational and they get to embody it.
So interesting. And you kept bringing up the roots, like all these different modalities you were doing didn't quite address the roots,
Yeah.
layers of it maybe. Yet as you went into discovering these new journeys, moving towards the creator, doing your somatic work, the EFT, which by the way, you gave me an experience of that, and it is amazing and it does work. Yet my question is, when it comes to the roots, as you lean into these modalities, does it ever go away? Obviously, what's happened to us, our experiences, our journey is real. Yet, how do you address the roots? You clean up this. Is it just you create a new story around the roots? Because I feel like the roots are the roots. So, what actually is happening such that you're not constantly living in the past with what's happened to us?
Oh, this is such a good question. I love it. So we actually go rescue those parts of you that are stuck living in that over and over and over again in your subconscious. We take a traumatic event and we actually work through the layers of it so it can process through. So it actually becomes a memory versus part of you stuck living in it over and over again. And I can do this with EFT. I can do this with brain spotting. Clinical EFT is great with this kind of stuff because we really break it down into specific aspects and really clear it out. One, like when you go through experiences, it gets stored in our bodies. But some of the ways that we store memories are through our senses. So sight, smell, sound, touch, some people sixth sense, so energy. And so, like, when I work with someone specifically on the roots, like childhood traumatic moments, they don't always have to be huge traumatic moments because even a child feeling neglected could cause trauma in their system later on. But it's just like a moment where they didn't feel cared for. So we really break down that and see what's still living in the body. Because when you bring it up, you'll feel it in your body, and that lets you know how much is not processed. You know something is processed because when you think of it, it's almost like you're watching a movie of it and you're not living in it still, right? You can talk about it, observe it, and it's not lighting up in your body. You're living it still. And that's how you know that you have a fully processed memory.
Wow, that's so interesting. So you're not really carrying it with you anymore, like energetically or in our body or as we're making decisions. It's just it's a memory. That's really cool. What so in this same light, you talk about owning your story. So can you share what that means? So let's say you start to clean this up and we're taking our past and really addressing the roots. Like you said, you if you run from the roots, like they're just going to continue to be where you are.
Yeah.
Right. So you start to do this work and do the healing. So what does it mean to own your story? Does it mean to realize like that the past is actually perfect because choosing to believe that because it is our past and it can be no other way and you're just now realizing it's your gift for the future? Can you share more what that means when you say I'm now owning my story?
Yeah. So one of the things I've learned is you can't bypass your system, which is why I actually teach people affirmations don't work because they only work if all your system is in alignment with it and congruent. But you can't force your system to believe something it just doesn't believe. So you have to work on like those layers that are getting in the way, like rebuttals or the counter doubts or beliefs that are blocking whatever that is. When it comes to that, oh, I went blank for a second. You can't bypass your system. So you truly, by owning your story, so before you own your story, you're just like feeling like life is happening to you. You're more like in the victim mode. And that's okay. It's okay to be a victim. It's valid. You probably were victimized, right? I feel like there's a lot of shame and blame towards victims. Victims are allowed to be victims and they're allowed to take however long they take to move out of that stage. But when you're owning your story, it's more like you're getting to this point of real appreciation for everything that you went through, and so you're moving out of the victim stage more into empowerment of the gifts too that came from the crap and getting to the point of true appreciation for everything you went through because it got you to this point. And you know that had any of that been different, you probably wouldn't be at this point. But you can't bullshit this and you can't force it. And that's the work though, is getting to that point. And also, it's okay to be in the victim stage. I was in it for a long time, and some people are very victim shamey, very victim blamey, and not supportive. And in fact, they help in preventing people from healing. I remember at earlier stages, I would share vulnerably on social media some of the parts of my story or stages I was in that were really hard. And I remember some people jumping on me like, oh, you shouldn't share that. You're not owning your story. Or, and one of the hardest things for someone to do is share and speak, especially in the middle of the mess. And if you're jumping on them, trying to silence them, you're not doing them a service. So, yeah, just being mindful of that because
Yeah.
it's okay for people to be in that stage and there's nothing wrong with it. And you can't force someone to move out of that because there's parts of them that aren't feeling safe. There's actually a quote I really love: can only move as fast as the most unsafe part of you feels safe. So pacing is so important. You can't rush the process. So there needs to be a little bit more compassion with people and understanding. You know what I mean? When it comes to this stuff, because you could hinder someone's healing process with that shamey thing that called personal growth. So I do have a little bit of conflict with the personal development world with certain things because there are ways that they shame people for being in that stage, and it's not helpful because then it just reinforces that belief of what's wrong with me? It's working for them. It's not working for me. Why can't I just be like this? And so then you have people trying to force themselves to be somewhere in something that they're not before their system is actually processed that.
Yeah, no, it's such a good message. As I'm thinking, I don't want to become a part of the problem by accident, right? Not
Yeah.
realizing. And so having that compassion. And as we say, we all don't know what people have gone through or are going through. And so just treat everybody with kindness is what that is things to me, because I think about that all the time. Sometimes I'll be standing, as silly as it sounds, like at the grocery store. I'm like, I wonder what this person in front of me's life journey has been. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Or they might be snotty with the person who is taking their groceries, but who knows what just happened to them the last 3 hours. And so it's
Yeah.
just having that level of understanding, I think, is super important. And in this light, your book is called Into the Light. Is it becoming your own? I
Becoming my
apologize.
own
Becoming my own hero, right? So you talk about working through the victim mindset to start to, whatever that might look like for each person, start to love themselves, not feel like they need to be rescued to get themselves out of the situation, or start to take responsibility by creating a story that serves them, all these things. How does somebody, or maybe even talk about yourself, like how important is it to become our own hero? Because I know I've been in situations before, not as extreme of what we're talking about, but I secretly was hoping someone would come and save me. I really want someone to come and save me or help me or get me through this. And I think there's some truth to that. We have friends and who we choose to hang around. And you talked a lot about the environments we put ourselves in. Yet talk more about becoming our own hero, because I really love that concept.
Yeah. So that was actually the hard. Yeah, I was hoping someone would come rescue me forever, ever since I was a kid. I remember praying on the side of the bed when I was little, just like wishing for a loving family and everything to get better. And that didn't happen. I the funny, not so funny, but yeah. So that actually set me up to get into these abusive relationships because I was waiting for my Prince Charming. Prince Charming, if someone's charming, run away because it's not. You don't want Prince Charming
Mhm.
because they actually are not Prince Charming. The charm is a way to manipulate or whatever. So run away from those ones. But yeah, it set me up to actually be in those relationships because I'm giving away my power and looking for someone to save me. And it actually takes me. And how do you save yourself? You do somatic work, right? You commit to your growth and your healing, right? You do a daily practice that supports you feeling good in your body. So, what would you include in your daily practice? And it's important that it's daily for a few reasons: to help regulate your nervous system, to help you have a center and really know who you are, to help you with discernment so you can sense in your body what's aligned or not aligned, who's aligned, not aligned, to reconnect with your intuition and how connect to a higher power. But like things to include is like movement, EFT tapping, breath work, and meditation. The next thing is boundaries. You definitely need to have some solid boundaries there, and not based on what pop culture says is okay for you, based on what feels good or doesn't feel good in your nervous system. Your nervous system will tell you. A lot of us tolerate things that really put us in a state of fight or flight all the time. And that means you're accepting something that your system really is not okay with. And so, like, really honoring your system and stop trying to fit squares and circle holes. If you really need a boundary around something and somebody's not able to give that to you, not a match. Stop trying to make things fit that don't fit. And then, yeah, and also the boundary thing too is to me the key of self love. Like back in the day, people were like, oh, you just need to love yourself more. Oh, I used to hate this phrase from people because I'm like, how do you do that? And I've found that it's boundaries because you're allowed to say no. You're allowed to change your mind and recommunicate. You're allowed to have respect. You're allowed to put a boundary around whatever you need. And if somebody can't meet you there, then maybe they're not meant to be in your playpen, because your boundaries are meant to create a playpen for you to be able to create and live and within your window of capacity, right? If you're constantly in fight or flight or hypervigilance, you're not even in your logical thinking brain. You're just constantly living here in survival.
Wow. Everything you shared, I'm just sitting here thinking so much wisdom, Cassandra, that's coming obviously from life experience. Yet everything you're sharing, I think the listeners and myself, I'm relating it to my life as you're sharing around what I can do to be my own hero and to save myself, for lack of better words, and what I can implement to ensure I'm setting myself up for success, for great relationships, and what I want to for myself. And I'm just thinking as you're sharing, the listeners I know are getting so much value from what you're sharing. And thank you for having the courage to share your story. And I know we've just touched on each chapter, yet there's a lot of layers there. And I know you've gone through a lot and you have turned your pain into power. You're like a living, breathing example
Mm.
of somebody who has created blessings for yourself and now for so many other people. So I just want to say thank you for that. It's very, very inspiring.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, anytime I can support maybe shortening that path for someone else or,
Yeah.
don't make these mistakes I made, I want to share it because it's hard.
Yeah, totally. And where, you know what, I'm sure people are listening and being like, oh, I need to get your book that's coming out, which we
Yeah.
absolutely want everybody to do to support Cassandra and support yourself with insights into your own journey and to possibly use your modalities and get some lessons from you like I did. I had one session with you and you helped me clean up some trauma that I was dealing with. And that was just one session.
Yeah.
So I encourage everybody to reach out to Cassandra. So where can people find you if maybe they know about these modalities and they've used them and they want your services, or they've been curious about what they are and they want to learn more. Maybe they've never even heard of somatic work before and they're like, what is it? I need to actually know. So where can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, people can check out my website, Cassandra with a C and two S's, lovelambert.com. Instagram is also a great place to get little teaser videos and stuff at C_love_Lambert. And then my book, I think it's books.cassandralovelambert.com. I think, let me look really fast.
And we'll put it in the show notes too, just so that people can go and click on it and just get it easy access.
Perfect. Yeah. But I was like, I don't remember that one. But yeah, so I think Instagram and then the website, right? Because the website also talks about the pain into power process, what's EFT, what's brain spotting, has some frequently asked questions on there. And then it connects to other sites as well.
Awesome. So yeah, so definitely go check out Cassandra's website, check out her services, just connect with her, be around her amazing energy And so, Cassandra, just last few questions in short answer form.
Yeah.
What would you say today? You've had a lot of chapters in your life. What would you say today is your version of success for yourself?
It would be resilience, like the ability to fall on your face and really mess up and then just get back up and go again, I would say. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And what would you say to people who want to unleash their greatness? What would be three things you would guide people to do to unleash their inner greatness?
That's a good one. Really know themselves, turn off the noise, go inward, meditate, commit to your growth and learning. So whatever that is, whether it's the personal development world, somatic, just commit to it. And then honestly, can't have life without the lifeline. I realized so connecting to a higher power. We're not meant to do this alone. And there's something greater than any of us out there, an energy that can really help you in your life and guide you.
Love your message. And what if you were to guide, just a what last question, the listeners hop off this episode, what would be one thing you would guide them to do, a call to action for themselves this week?
Check out somatic work, learn about it. A really great book is The Body Keeps the Score. So I would even check out that book, especially if you're curious, you don't quite know what somatic work is. It really explains how the things we go through live in our bodies and why it's important to heal that.
Okay, awesome. Cassandra, like I said, thank you so much for being here, for being so open and honest. I believe this is the most open and honest and vulnerable conversation I've had on my podcast so
Yeah.
far. And yeah, you're a breath of fresh air in your vulnerability and your willingness to share to help others. The courage that you've gone through, like I said, to get your life to where it is now. Just so proud of you and inspired by you and excited we've reconnected. We met for a reason. I believe that we all meet people for a reason, and we met for a reason, whatever it was, 12 or 13 years ago along that journey. And just thank you so much for being you. And everybody go and get Cassandra's book. When is it coming out, Cassandra? Your
But
book?
yeah, so it's on pre-sale now, which Kelly has the link, but it will officially come out on Amazon October, November.
Okay, awesome. So go get her book, support her. And Cassandra, just grateful for you. And thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Wow. I just want to truly thank Cassandra for coming on. As I was saying, that's definitely the most vulnerable episode I've had so far with my guest sharing about their journey and their life journey and just what they've gone through. And just huge respect for Cassandra for being open to sharing her story and all of the beautiful messaging she had throughout that we could pull away and possibly relate and utilize for ourselves. If you're going through something similar, or if you're going through something that isn't serving you, or you're in an environment that you don't want to be in, my hope is that today's episode gave you some hope that you can have a roadmap to getting to the other side and heal and transform. And I definitely recommend reaching out to Cassandra with her healing modalities and what she does and who she is. And her book will be coming out here shortly. Once again, it's called Into the Light, Becoming My Own Hero. And so just once again, thanks Cassandra for being on. Thanks for being so vulnerable and honest. Appreciate you. Extremely inspiring. Love everything that you're doing now, which we didn't get into a lot, which is why I say go check out Cassandra as well with just what she's doing with her coaching and her wellness practices for others and her healing modalities. And for those of you that listened today to the end, thank you so much for listening. With love, greatness, and success, it's your host, Kelly Beveridge.